In November 2016, as a college student, I was looking for a new way to take notes, access the internet without having to haul around my 15-inch laptop and its power adapter. I already had an iPad Air 2, but personally didn't really like using the touchscreen for taking notes, and the keyboard on the touchscreen is pretty serviceable, but for writing anything longer than just a few sentences, it kind of gets tiring. So the simple solution was just to get a Bluetooth keyboard, but after shopping around, the only one that was really compact and still felt good to type on, to me, was Apple's own Magic Keyboard at a price of $99. But of course, the Black Friday preview ads had been coming out, and I noticed something special, which was Dell's base model Inspiron 113000, model 3162, for only $99. Same price as getting a Magic Keyboard, so, why not? The computer ended up serving me incredibly well throughout the remainder of my time at college, especially with a typical battery life of 5 hours or more, and a power adapter that was way smaller than one from my other laptop, making it so much easier to carry around. The processor is an Intel Celeron N3050, and despite the computer being completely fanless, I don't recall ever seeing the CPU speed throttle back due to heat. It's perfectly fine sitting around pegged at 100% utilization. Realistically, if you don't try to multitask too heavily, you can stay within the bounds of the included 2 gigs of RAM. Certain applications or websites that are poorly optimized will slow things down, of course, but when you keep in mind that you only paid $99, to me at least, it's acceptable to have to wait around sometimes. I was actually impressed by this computer's performance, knowing well the horror stories of original netbook class computers, and found that it was even able to run simple games like Don't Starve, Besiege, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas perfectly fine. Compared to all of the other sub-$200 laptop offerings that I was aware of in November 2016, excluding Chromebooks, the Inspiron had the best keyboard and trackpad of them all. I tested several of them at the time in different stores. I think there were a few other models from Dell in the 14-inch range. I know there was an HP one that I looked at and also a Lenovo. And this really was the best out of all of them, in my opinion. The keyboard doesn't have a lot of travel, but to me, it doesn't feel mushy at all and is good to type on. The trackpad doesn't have amazing build quality and can feel kind of crunchy at times, but the feel of the surface and how the mouse moves are excellent compared to its competitors of the time. While I'm sure it's not color accurate and doesn't have the best viewing angles, I think the display looks good and the 1366 by 768 resolution is perfect for the 11.6-inch screen size. Everything looks good and crisp, and Intel's integrated graphics do a good job at upscaling standard definition video. I often also use TeamViewer to stream my other laptop's 1080p display to this laptop, and although it got a little blurry on downscaling, the full HD downscale to this display was handled perfectly and it was completely usable. I really like the aesthetic of this computer, which is another reason why I chose it over some of its competitors. It reminds me of the old polycarbonate white MacBook, which I sought after around 2009 and never ended up actually buying. It feels surprisingly heavy in a good way and well built compared to other inexpensive laptops that I've used. I do wish that they would have included a power indicator and maybe even a hard drive indicator light somewhere. Especially with no fans, there's absolutely no indication that the PC is running, sleeping, or charging after the screen goes to sleep. Really, my biggest complaint about this computer is the 32 gigabytes of included eMMC storage space, which in real-world use doesn't feel much faster than a standard mechanical hard drive. eMMC speed-wise is more similar to flash memory rather than a modern solid-state drive, especially an NVMe drive. But to make it even worse, the 32 gigabytes becomes only around 28 gigabytes after formatting, and even a fresh installation of Windows takes up at least half of that. With only 10 or so gigabytes left of free space, installing basic applications like Microsoft Office and having temporary files build up can easily leave you with only a few gigabytes of space left. Twice it got to a point where the only way I could install the latest Windows feature upgrade was to completely reinstall Windows from scratch. Reinstalling is simple, but not really an acceptable solution to this problem, especially for people who don't know a lot about computers. It's easy to expand the storage using an SD card or a compact flash drive, which I did, but it's probably not going to be much faster than the internal eMMC storage. Unfortunately, there's not an easy way to add more storage or even more RAM to this PC because everything is soldered to the motherboard. It does look like nowadays Dell is still offering this computer but with 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is an improvement, but I really wish they'd get rid of this 32 gig eMMC and upgrade that to 64 at minimum. If you're willing to remove the PCIe Wi-Fi card inside, you could potentially install an M.2 form factor SSD in its place and maybe get lucky enough for the motherboard and Windows to recognize it as valid storage. But of course, with the trade-off of no internet access unless you use an external Wi-Fi or Ethernet adapter. Another far-fetched idea would be to buy a motherboard for the Inspiron 11-3168 or 3169 2-in-1 laptops, which are the same size but have interchangeable DDR3L and SATA slots, and faster processors such as the Pentium or Core M3. I'm not sure if the display ribbon cable would be the same though, since the 3168 and 3169 have touchscreens, and the 3162 does not. I was actually planning on attempting this conversion myself to make a more powerful machine, but never ended up getting around to it. The other thing with this is that I paid $99 for this laptop on Black Friday, which is an amazing deal for buying a computer new. Last year I was able to find a Dell Precision M4600 15-inch laptop for only $120. It included the power supply, included a battery and a hard drive. The battery did need to be replaced though, but that was only I think $30 or $40. I did also replace the bezel around the screen just to make it look a little bit nicer, and it ended up being about $180 all in. So really, that's a full workstation grade computer with an i7 and Radeon Fire Pro graphics for only $180. Fortunately, I was able to buy it at a surplus where I was able to see it in person and turn it on to verify that it works. Doing such a thing on eBay is a little bit more tricky because you've got to find a good seller and make sure that the unit really doesn't have any problems. But the thing about the Precision is, even though it's a way faster and a way better computer than the Inspiron, it wouldn't have really suited my needs if I would have used that instead, because it weighs a ton and the power adapter weighs a ton, and even with the new battery it only gets about 2 hours of battery life. The sub $200 laptops that are coming out now have so much better battery life than buying something old, just because old batteries degrade over time, and then sometimes it may even be hard to find the replacement battery. So where does it stand now? Well, I decided to, a few weeks ago, retire and sell this computer because I graduated from college and don't really have much need for an ultra portable laptop anymore. For my job, I use an employer-provided laptop, which is required to stay at work, and at home, I use one of my desktop computers most of the time, and my 15-inch laptop if I need to move around a bit. The 15-inch Asus's battery life has worked hard over 4.5 years I've owned it, and it only lasts around 2 hours or less now, but it's manageable. And whenever I have to travel, I'll just take the Asus and deal with the battery life in whatever way I can. Someday I'll get a new laptop when I feel like I have money to burn, maybe the Dell XPS 15 Surface Book or 15-inch MacBook Pro 2018, all of which are very expensive and justifiably I feel are good contenders for large screen, slim laptops with dedicated graphics card. The Inspiron 11-3162 helped me get through countless lectures, assignments, and exams, and I really enjoyed the time I've owned it. But now that I'm not doing any of that anymore, I won't really notice that it's gone. I've recently been trying to consolidate some of my technology and sell things so that are not really applicable anymore to my current living situation. Understandably, I can't just keep things like this based solely on nostalgic or personal value. I'm probably going to save the money I get from selling these items to purchase something new with less guilt than spending my earned wages. I ended up selling this computer on eBay for $89, including the sleeve from Amazon that I had with it. And I figured out exactly, after all the selling fees and shipping and whatnot, this computer only cost me $35 to own over basically 23 months. I think originally these were selling for around $150 to $179. They were typically on sale somewhere around there, which still isn't a bad deal for what this computer is, but at $99, I just couldn't pass it up, and it really was worth it just to have that extra portability while I was in college for now net only $35. It's just unbelievable. I hope you enjoyed this overview and kind of review of the Dell Inspiron 11-3162. I plan to make more videos similar to this in the future, so if you're intrigued by this content, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay tuned. Thanks again.